What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with a super fun mail call today. I promise it's going to be fun because I'm going to have fun. You're here with me. Alright, I had to edit that little bit out because I revealed my seller's address with my cutting. But, as I was saying, we're going to have a ton of fun today because I'm going to have fun because this lot is something that, I don't know, a dealer or a collector put this together. I suspect probably a collector. But it was a collector who was a fan of Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. And I'm a fan of those things as well. And so we're just gonna, this was like a ready-made collection of keys from Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. So we're just gonna see what we have and how they come out. Look, you got a peek there. Maybe we should, here's some raw books. Maybe we should start with these raw books. That'll be fun. In fact, I think I'll set these slabs aside for a moment. I want to start with these raw books because there's some very significant keys in these raw books. And looks like the seller did a reasonable job packing all this up. Doesn't quite look like a pro job, to be honest, but to be fair, it did the job. Everything seems to have gotten here safely. So, what do we have here? Wow, look at this. All right, let's talk about them in this order here, like that. All right. What do we have and why do we care? Check this out. Detective Comics number 300. First appearance of the Polka Dot Man. This is from February 62. So this is actually pretty early book. This is, look, it was, somebody had it listed at 400. I think that's actually about right for this book. That might be what this collector paid. Maybe they were all into that franchise, but then ran into maybe some bills they had to pay or something. I'm not sure, or just lost interest. Their loss is our gain in this case. So I estimated this from the pictures at approximately a 5. My first impression is that that's probably right on. Maybe it's even a little nicer than that. This is pretty incredible. As I said, 62, so early Silver Age. The Marvel Age is barely getting started. The Comics Code Authority is only 5 years old at this point. And you have Dick Sprang art and really kind of classic corny ass early 60s, late 50s Batman stories like you were getting in Detective and Batman. But I think that this character was so much fun in the movie that he really got kind of a cult following and really was endeared to a lot of people, myself included. And so I'm actually very happy to have a copy of this. I did not previously own it, so I'm very happy to have a nice mid-grade copy of this for my PC. Fair market value for a 4.0 is about $400. There are only 116 universal copies of this book in the CGC census. So it is a, by no means, book that is common in the census. Definitely tough to come by in grade. The fair market value goes approximately $100 per point. So a 5.0 is about 500, a 6.0 is about 600. I'm going to consider this for my PC. I may consider getting this slabbed. I'm going to just quick estimate this at about a 5. I don't know if it's quite a 6. It probably has just a little bit too much wear and tear to be a 6, but I think realistically it's got a good shot at a 5.5. So I think we're looking at something. Now I would have to pay about almost $50 to get this slabbed, but once it's slabbed, we're looking at something that has a fair market value around $500 to $600, I think. That's today's market. But just a fun character that, again, I did not have in my PC, despite having a very extensive Silver Age collection of Batman and Detective. That's not a book that I have because it is not an easy book to come by. Speaking of, and I think I'm going to get this out of my way as well. Another book that's not an easy book to come by, especially in grade, Peacemaker #1. This is Peacemaker's 3rd appearance and his first cover. So, we talk about on the channel first appearances and keys and what do we like to acquire. I like first appearances that are also first covers. When a first appearance is not a first cover, I like to also find the first cover. This is also the first solo and the first issue of his ongoing series. So obviously a very significant book. I had estimated this also at about a 5 based on the pictures that I saw, but also hoping like maybe it was closer to a 6. And I do think it's closer to a 6 on this one. I think I could tell somebody with a straight face that this is a 6. As long as, we don't have any coupons cut out or any other problems inside the book, which doesn't look like we do. Great publication. Obviously a Charlton publication. The rights to these characters were later acquired by DC. This book was published in March 1967. It only ran 5 issues, this series. So we actually also have issues 4 and 5 in this lot. And I happen to have issue 3 in a nice solid mid-grade similar to these that I had acquired in a different collection. So I now have nearly the full run. I just need to get a number 2. This is funny too because you see in these images, he does have a completely different helm here to here to here. And that sort of plays on that concept from the show where he had a whole collection of different Peacemaker helms, right? So it's kind of neat that we have that here. I really like also the warring dove kind of insignia that we get on this issue. So this book here, somewhat surprisingly to me, only 139 copies in the CGC census. Fair market value is actually difficult to estimate because I think people that are buying these slabs are holding on to them. There are very few have traded hands. There's a few out there with people asking a lot of money that people aren't willing to pay at the moment. But with only 139 in the census and the popularity of this character and the fact that we know for sure he's coming back to the DCU and that this is one of the really bright spots in their programming right now, this is a copy that I want for my PC. I may slab it and I may look for an opportunity to get an even higher grade, an 8 at some point, and maybe then I could sell this to offset those costs. But for the moment, this is at least my placekeeper, and one that I'm very happy to have in this grade. In terms of fair market value on this, like I said, difficult to assess at the moment. I think if you look at, sales in the last 90 days, there have been a couple. This is approximately a little bit less than $100 per point. So I would consider a 6.0 on this in today's market worth approximately $500. I do think, it's a cold key. And when that property heats back up, you're going to see this be worth, north of 600. It's probably going to be worth more than $100 a point. So if I consider this to be a 6, which I think I can comfortably say, you know, it's probably going to be worth $700 to $800 once the interest in that book returns and we get, you know, the next season. So as I mentioned, there are only 5 issues of this series here. 4 has only 33 universal copies in the CGC census, and not a lot of sales on these either. There's not, in fairness, there's not a lot of demand, even though there's only 33 copies. There's not a lot of demand for this book. So I would estimate the fair market value, if this was slabbed, to be, you know, even though this is probably a 7, provided that the back and the interior looks similar to the cover, I would estimate the fair market value only at about $100 or so. So this is one that's borderlines on whether or not it's even worth getting slabbed. But it would kind of be neat to have all 5 of them slabbed, so I may do that anyway. And then this is the last issue from that series. This particular issue, only 12 copies in the CGC census. I don't know if that's a matter of, you know, last issues sometimes are dramatically underprinted because they're basically, you know, it's about to be canceled. Not very many people are buying the book. Maybe it's just a book that's not really worth slabbing. It is very difficult to say, very difficult to really guess at what the fair market value of that is with only 12 in the census. There just aren't that many changing hands. For the moment, I would estimate it similar to the other one in terms of fair market values, probably around $100. And if you waited long enough, you might find a seller that wants to pay you more just because there's so few of them around. But by no means is this, you know, the book in this collection that's gonna make me rich. This book, on the other hand, may be that book. Look at this beauty. So despite the banner here, the title of this book is actually Special War Series, and there's also no number on this cover. This is Special War Series number 4, and it's the first appearance of this fellow, Judo Master. And his incarnation in the Peacemaker show is a little bit different than it is here. They obviously went with a different color scheme, and also you'll note that he's more or less the same size as these villains here, where he's interacting with other folks, rather than with the very diminutive fellow that they went with in the HBO Max series. Boy, is this a nice copy, huh? This might be an 8.0 with a clean press. Very slight crease there and crease there. They both barely break color, but they don't just really distract. A little bit of chipping along this edge, and otherwise beautiful, beautiful copy from October 1965. This book also not a common book in the census. Only 56 total copies in the CGC census. The last sale, there was an 8.0 that sold in the last 30 days for $300. But very few other sales, so difficult to determine a true fair market value. I wanted this book for my personal collection. As I mentioned, I'm a real fan of the show. So I would not let this go for that money. It would take a lot more than that to pry this out of my hands. I think this is an important book. You know, there may not be a lot of demand for it, but there's very little supply. So if you let this book go out of your PC, how are you going to replace it? Like, what is it going to cost you to find another 8.0? you're gonna search a really long time or pay a lot more than 300 bucks. So I would not be letting it go for that price today, certainly. So that's a PC book for me. Thrilled to have, thrilled to get it in that grade. But we're not done, because we also got a pile of slabs in this collection. So here's one of them. I'll display it with this one. This is Peacemaker #1 from January 1988. I already have a couple copies of this book. In fact, I have a 9/8 copy that I made by purchasing a copy of this book from the dollar bin and subbing it. But this shouldn't be a dollar bin book. This is actually the first self-titled at DC. It's the first appearance of Wolfgang Schmidt, which is, of course, Peacemaker's dad, and one of the main villains in the HBO Max show. So these books here don't have today a ton of fair market value, and like I said, I've already got one of these 9/8s in my PC that I made by getting a dollar bin book and cleaning and pressing and subbing it. The total number of CGC copies for this book is a little bit over 200. 9/8s. Right now, fair market value is only about 140 bucks. Peak was 400 during the hype around the HBO Max series. 9/6 fair market value is about 120 bucks. I think that's about right for this book, 120 to 160 when the market comes back. 140 is way cheap for this book. I expect this book to be more like 250 to 300 when the market comes back. So I already have a 9/8. I'll be selling these or offering these to sale. I may wait a bit for the market to recover because I'm not in a big hurry, but I expect to recoup probably almost $300 from these two slabs from the total cost of this lot. But as I said, we're still not done. We got one more slab to talk about. This book here. This is a fun one. This is New Teen Titans #23 from September 1982. This is a book that I bought off the spinner rack myself as a young man. Huge fan of the New Teen Titans, Wolfman and Perez, and love this storyline. Went nuts when I saw Blackfire. So this was, for a long time, known most importantly as the first appearance of Blackfire. She is, of course, in the HBO Max series Titans. The other sort of less known first appearance is that of Adrian Chase. Interestingly, Adrian Chase does not show up here as Vigilante just yet. He's introduced as the district attorney, or maybe he's the assistant DA. But they actually, CGC now lists this as the first appearance of Vigilante, but then they say parenthetically not in costume. So what is this book here worth? It's not a super valuable book. CGC has almost 400 copies of this in the census. This was possibly the most popular comic at the time, so it was mass-produced in large numbers. If it wasn't the best-selling comic at the time, it was very close, maybe second behind X-Men, something like that. So there's a lot of them in the marketplace, and that's what dictates it not being a super valuable book. A 9/6 has a fair market value, probably only about 75 bucks. That said, I'd love a copy of this in my collection. I do have some raws. I don't think I have a 9/8 candidate raw. So this 9/6 is a book that, I'll happily put in my collection as a placeholder to find a 9/8. And then again, could be something that I potentially move if I find that 9/8, but I'll be happy to have this one until then. So that's the whole lot. I told you it was going to be a lot of fun. Again, I think this was a collector who was way into the Suicide Squad and the Peacemaker series and probably bought all these books as a collection or along the way. At some point, either lost interest, needed some cash, not sure. This was put up at a auction And I won it either for the opening bid or just a few dollars more than the opening bid. So my cost on this collection was $708. That was all in with tax and shipping included. I added up what I think is a reasonable fair market value for all of these books at about $1,800. Some of those books are books that I don't own, and I'm going to be happy to have in my PC, especially, you know, this one and this one, this one. These are pretty big keys that I'm thrilled to have. But the other books, you know, I think are a little bit more commodity. They'll come and go. If I find the right buyer, I could flip them. I can offset a lot of that cost. So I think this lot has the potential for me to sell off some of the stuff that I don't need and to have these really pretty significant keys in nice mid to high grade for a fraction of their fair market value. So this is just another strategy that I wanted to share with you for increasing the value of your personal collection and offsetting the costs and having the hobby sort of pay for itself. If I was willing to let a few of these books go, I could even say, look, I could easily have this book and this book for free, because I'm pretty sure individual sales of the other 6 books would get me my $700 back. So that's, again, just one strategy for those of you that are interested in growing your collection and sort of playing what I've called, you know, one of the games within the game, which is buying and selling books and cleaning and pressing and submitting to CGC. And if you're interested in the game within the game, here's one of the ways in which you to play it. There's lots of ways to play that game, lots of ways to play it well. This is just, you know, one of the strategies that I employ. So hope you enjoyed this. This was super fun for me to open these up. I'm even more excited now for season 2 of Peacemaker. And I hope that everybody out there is enjoying the hunt as much as I am. And until next time, take care of one another.